Capitol Hill is certainly a little bit quieter this week as members of the House of Representatives are away on their August district work period. And, President Trump, we just talked about a little earlier, he's just completed his first 6 months back in the Oval Office. And obviously, while out on district work month, House Republicans are spending time during these next 5 weeks touting the policy successes of the Trump administration and the Republican Congress. But looking back, what are we to make of the first 6 months when it comes specifically to issues of faith, family, and freedom? Well, joining me today to discuss this is David Closson. He's the director of the Center for Biblical Worldview here at the Family Research Council. He's also author of the new book, Life After Roe, Equipping Christians in the Fight for Life Today. David, welcome back to Washington Watch. I know we were not able to talk this last Friday, but I'm so glad you were able to work it into your schedule today. Thanks for joining us.
Joy to be with you, Jody. Thanks again for having me.
It's always a privilege. All right, let me just start with this. From your perspective, what have been maybe the most significant pro-life victories during this first 6 months of the Trump administration?
Well, Jody, what a 6 months it has been. If you think about everything that's happened since January 20th, when President Trump took the oath of office there in the Capitol Rotunda, whether it's issues related to the border, trade deals, mediating peace between India and Pakistan, or Rwanda and the Democratic Congo Republic, there has been a lot. And you specifically asked me about the life issue because, some of the issues I just named, those are the issues that get most of the headlines. Trade has been in the news even today, of course, border and the immigration. But there are some issues, that we as Christians particularly care about because we believe they are creation order issues, Genesis 1 and 2 issues. And of course, life is one of those. And I got to be honest with you, Jody, I'm incredibly pleased how President Trump has governed on this issue. And if I may, if you just think about the alternative reality, if you remember Joe Biden, when he launched his very misguided campaign, short-lived campaign for his second term, he officially launched that campaign under a massive banner that said, "Restore Roe." He put abortion front and center of his campaign. And of course, Kamala Harris, when she took over the reins and ran that campaign, she did so as well. But here are just a couple of things I wrote down right before I came on the program of what President Trump has done on the life issue. 4 days after taking the oath of office on January 24th, he put out an executive order titled Enforcing the Hyde Amendment, just making it very clear that taxpayer dollars cannot be used to promote or fund abortion. He revoked several Biden-era executive orders, including a really bad one from August of 2022 that had basically said Biden had directed his Justice Department and other departments to look at abortion as health care. That was their response to the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. President Trump made it very clear, though, that abortion was not going to be seen as health care in the United States. Of course, he restored the Mexico City policy. That means billions of dollars of America's foreign aid cannot go to promote or fund abortion. Marco Rubio, in one of his first acts of Secretary of State, rejoined the Geneva Consensus Declaration, declaring that there is no international right to abortion. Of course, President Trump pardoned 23 pro-lifers who had been thrown in jail by the Biden administration. President Trump, in the first week of his administration, released a statement of administrative policy support for the Born Alive Abortion Survivor Act, legislation that Republicans have been trying to get through Congress for many years, which would, again, just provide protections to babies who survive botched abortions. And lastly, Jody, I'll just mention the use of the bully pulpit. Obviously, whenever the president speaks, he commands an international audience. And he called in just days after his inauguration to the March for Life, expressing support. And then J.D. Vance appeared in person in his first public remarks since becoming vice president, supported the March for Life and just made it very clear where he stood. So overall, you asked me specifically on the life issue. I think social conservatives have a lot to be thankful for.
Wow, it's amazing. There's just so much water under the bridge in the first 6 months. And some of those things, I mean, while you're mentioning them, I'm saying, oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember that. But when you put it like you did, one after another, it's just, it really is remarkable. But it's not just the life issue. This president, this administration has been pretty active on religious liberty in general in a lot of practical ways. Can you break down some of those things for us?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind, Jody, is his establishment of the Religious Liberty Commission, which is a commission that is specifically exists to advise the White House Faith Office and then the Office of Domestic Policy. And this is a significant commission, and the folks that he has put on the commission are those who are well versed in First Amendment advocacy. Kristen Wagner, a friend of FRC and of the program, president and general counsel of ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom, she serves on that commission. And so this is a serious commission that has the ear of the president and those of his closest advisors. Other things on the religious liberty front, President Trump has instructed his Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice to make sure that they are defending the First Amendment rights of churches. Obviously, this is very significant. Other things that come to my mind, Jody, would be, as you know, the conversation about religious liberty often kind of intersects with the discussion about SOGI, so that those contested categories of sexual orientation and gender identity. And under the Biden administration, of course, even before that, the Obama administration, it seemed that whenever those claims of sexual orientation, gender identity came into conflict with religious liberty, that religious liberty was always supposed to take the back seat, even though that's spelled out in our First Amendment. President Trump on these issues has been also really helpful. Within just a couple of weeks, obviously, his executive order defining sex, saying that there's only two sexes, male and female, that's what he mentioned in his inaugural address. He then put that into an executive order. Another executive order, Jody, that's I think really important is keeping men, biological males, out of female sports. He has also, again, leveraged the bully pulpit of the presidency, enforcing the University of Pennsylvania, for example, to apologize to all those female athletes whose spots were taken by Leah Thomas, the biological male who set all sorts of records in women's sports. Another executive order that is really significant is against the mutilation of minor children, gender-confused children, and making sure that hospitals and healthcare providers that provide these so-called gender transition procedures, and of course this would include puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and actual physical surgeries, that they can't get a dime of federal funding if they allow minor children to be basically castrated and mutilated. So again, President Trump has just been really clear. He's revoked executive orders from the Biden administration on, again, so-called gender-affirming care. He's supported the creation of a private right to action for actual detransitioners to sue the hospitals that did these surgeries. So again, a detransitioner is someone who identified as transgender and actually got a surgery, maybe a double mastectomy or something like that, and then realizes they made a horrible mistake and wants to identify with their God-given sex. And President Trump is in favor of allowing those individuals to actually sue the surgeons who mutilated their bodies. And so on the front of religious liberty, on sanity with gender, President Trump has been a leader.
And this may be a really unfair question for you in light of all that you just unpacked for us. But is there any one or two of these type issues that stand out in your mind that you believe could have a lasting cultural and or legal impact in our country?
Yeah, several of these things, actually, Jody. So, of course, if you rule by executive order, that can be rescinded by executive order. But there are some things that are getting put in place that would outlast even a Democratic administration. So you and I have had conversations on the Johnson Amendment. And, of course, this right now the IRS is before a court in Texas. They've entered a consent judgment, basically saying that they will no longer go after churches that want to endorse political candidates. Again, the so-called Johnson Amendment, named after then Senator Johnson, who wanted to go after nonprofit organizations that didn't support his candidacy. That's something that's been weaponized against churches for decades now. It's been used kind of as a mechanism to silence churches. Once the judge signs this consent judgment, this will be something that Jody will have long-term effects because it can't be overturned by a future Democratic administration. And then just very briefly, the Supreme Court, in large part driven by 3 Donald Trump appointments to the Supreme Court, and Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, they've produced unbelievable wins for social conservatives. Of course, you and I have talked about these at length, Jody, but the Scrimeti case, affirming Tennessee's law that minor children, that you can have that state law that protects minor children from these surgeries that we've talked about. Obviously, the Mahmoud decision from Maryland, where the Supreme Court said that parents could actually have rights over their children, that you can't force this crazy LGBT indoctrination on children as young as pre-kindergarten. Another case would be the Paxton case, again, driven by Donald Trump's appointments to that court, that says that, pornography distributors of that vile filth actually need to take steps to protect minor children. And then the Medina case, you and I have talked about that, where South Carolina is allowed to make sure that Planned Parenthood doesn't participate in the Medicaid program there in the state. And so all of these are, this is Supreme Court precedent now, again, in large part driven by the president's phenomenal appointments to the nation's highest court.
Yeah, and those things certainly will have a lasting impact, no doubt about that. And, again, while you're going through these things, David, my mind is just swirling. It's unbelievable how much has been accomplished in 6 months. So I guess, where do you see this going from here? I mean, what do you hope to see? What do you anticipate to see from this administration, say, in the next 6 months? One thing that comes to my mind is chemical abortion. I mean, we've got a petition right now about that. Do you think that's going to be addressed? What do you anticipate in the next 6 months?
Yeah, well, Jody, that's my prayer as well. This is an issue that I talk about in my book that you mentioned, Life After Roe. I view chemical abortion as really kind of an existential threat to the pro-life movement. Folks who pay attention to this program know that we talk about it all the time. But that 2-pill abortion regimen that was initially approved by the Clinton administration, the waning days of that administration back in 2000, chemical abortion now makes up 63% of abortion in this country. And it doesn't even matter if you live in a really conservative state that has really strong pro-life laws. Chemical abortion pills can be mailed from New York or California or Illinois because right now the federal government is not enforcing federal laws that prohibit that. And so, Jody, I would love to see the Trump administration to enforce federal law to prohibit the mailing of these horrifying drugs that not only kill unborn children, but that are dangerous for women. EPP study this spring showed that actually 10.93% of women who take these pills have an adverse health effect. These are horrible pills. So I'd love to see the Trump administration to enforce that federal law, get the Justice Department involved. Even when it comes to the FDA, the Southern Baptist Convention a couple of weeks ago passed a resolution that I had the privilege of co-authoring, calling for the FDA to revoke the approval for mifepristone, which is the first pill in the chemical abortion regimen. These are dangerous pills. They were approved back in 2000 under a very rushed, haphazard process. And this would protect a lot of women and, of course, unborn babies in this country. And so that's a huge issue. And then very quickly, Jody, I will say judges. The Trump administration, as of now, has only seen 4 of their judicial nominations confirmed, 1 circuit level nominee and 3 district level. There are 48 current vacancies on the federal bench. President Trump knows better than most people that judges can really thwart your agenda. And so I would love to see a lot more energy, President Trump working with, obviously, the Senate to confirm some of his many qualified nominees, because that will be something that outlives this presidency, those people in those positions who hold those lifetime tenures.
It really is a window of opportunity, I believe, that God has given us as a country. And this is a moment in history, not only that politics is engaged, but this is a moment where the body of Christ, the faith community, must step out, must step up, must be engaged in prayer, in action. This is a moment God has given us, and at the heart, it's a spiritual issue, and we've got to keep all these in mind from that perspective. David Closson, Director of the Center for Biblical Worldview here at the Family Research Council. As always, my friends, great to have you, and thanks for just etching out some time for us today, seeing that we couldn't connect this past Friday. Great to have you.
Thank you. God bless.